Hello friends, it's Lisa and I'm back with a brand new video. I actually have 2 videos up today showing 8 of these different cards. So I had a bunch of leftover scraps from a project that you'll see on Friday next week. So go ahead and subscribe if you're interested. And I had all these scraps left over and I was like, what should I do? I hadn't made any Christmas cards yet, so I thought I'll make some Christmas cards. Now I know when I'm posting this video, it's like 2 days away from Christmas, but I wanted to share this with you anyway because the color palette is totally not Christmas. And if I can make this color palette work for Christmas, it can really work for anything. You'll see that photo I just showed you is all of the different colors I used over all of the different cards I've made. So there's a list on my blog. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested in any specific colors. I may miss 1 or 2 as I'm going through. So the first thing I did was put everything through my Xyron sticker maker machine. This just coats all the back of everything. This is my all-time favorite card that I made, so I thought I'd start with it first. The first thing I did was actually, and I didn't show you this, of course, but I sprayed the back of that 5.5 by 5.5 piece of paper. I airbrushed some Copic marker, and the Copic marker that I used was actually the RV04. Now, then I put over some of the metallic gilding polish in the Pearl Luster color, sorry. Now, that basically made it a pink pearl card. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put this scrap of paper. It was such a pretty scrap. I was like, I have to use this some way, and I wasn't sure how. So I figured I could make a full butterfly, right? So I stuck it down to this Pearl Luster card, and I decided I'd kind of have a switch swap of colors. So you see it's on the pink pearl card, and I'm going to put the blue Copic marker, which is the B29 marker, and I'm going to airbrush that so you can see how I airbrush. I show you that later on. I'm sorry I missed that in the video editing, grabbing that. But I'm just going to airbrush through the stencil. You'll see that I didn't line it up perfectly with the other side because there's a large gap in the middle. So I matched it up where it looks like it's fine. The wings are closer together than the stencil has them. So it really made the full wings, and I thought I'd use this little baby Jesus stamp from Neat and Tangled, which I love so much, and stamp it and emboss it with silver embossing powder because I just love this stamp, and I thought little baby Jesus should have some butterfly wings. So I am actually giving this card to my friend who sent me an Easter card, and I never sent one back to her. It has been a crazy year. But I loved this one the best, so I felt really bad. So I'm going to send her this one that I liked the best. Anyway, back to the card. I added the Peace on Earth sentiment, which is on a little bit of scrap that I had left over, but it perfectly grounds that sentiment. And I get to use more of the beautiful scraps of things that I love. So that's why I really like this technique and why I really wanted to share it with you. Because you can create a bunch of stuff and use just tiny pieces of it to create awesomeness. So here I'm coloring baby Jesus in with some Pitt pens. I'm trying not to go over the embossing too much, just going around it, because it will kind of tint the color since I used silver and not black. I think this might have been a little bit better if I'd heat embossed it with black rather than silver, but too late now. Now, you will see that the color on the left is darker than the color on the right, and that's just because the background is darker. but I think you can still see the cohesive picture of the little baby Jesus. Next, I'm just adding in the little leftover parts. I only added in the O because I couldn't find the R, so I left the A and the R empty. But that is that card. So I used 2 pieces of scrap and created a beautiful card. On this one, I only used 1 piece of scrap and it inspired this whole scene. So the first thing I did was created the background, and I'm airbrushing the Copic marker on again, and that's the same RV04 marker. On the left there, you can see some of my pile of just all these colors. I'd picked them out for the other project I talked about at the beginning, and I had all the scraps left over, so I didn't want to put all of it up. So I just left it out and made all these cards with it. I am not the best at Copic airbrush, so I'm not going to say a whole lot other than that's what I'm doing. I do really like Copic airbrushing through the stencil. You don't get like perfectly crisp results, but it's great for something like this where I just want the background. This is the Architecture by the Crafters Workshop stencil, and it is just so much fun. It's great for creating an awesome background. So see here, it doesn't look like I did too much airbrushing, but when you start putting stuff on top of it, it goes perfectly into the background. You'll see I audition things a lot. I have all these pieces of scrap left over and I just try things out. Now, I decided to use this Joseph and Mary stamp, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the exact name, but I have it listed. It's either From Bethlehem or Lighting the Way from Penny Black. I really like their Christmas stuff, but it's just one of my favorite Christmas stamps that I have. So you'll see it on quite a few of the next cards on this video. I thought I'd show you kind of here, and this was one of the last cards I made, even though it's one of the first you're seeing. So I learned late in the game that even though I wanted to keep my palette very clean, I didn't want to go outside of this blues and pinks, that adding black and white to a palette is very helpful because of the contrast. I love the silver embossing powder, but it doesn't contrast enough with some of these lighter colors. When you see the silver on the dark blue, it looks great. When you see it not on the dark blue, if I silver embossed it here, it just wouldn't show up. So you'll see some of the next cards. If I'd done it like I did this card in the black, they would have looked even better. So next, I am just gluing on this Peace on Earth. And one thing you'll see with almost all of the sentiments I chose, they're all from the Diamond Press Christmas Sentiment Pack, which I'm not sure if you can get. It was on HSN, and I love it so much. I really like the Diamond Press Sentiments. You get a whole lot of them, and they're very graphic. But they sell out, and they don't make the same ones ever again. So that's kind of a pro and con of them. Here is the end card. It's very simple, super fast, super impactful. But for the sentiments, what I would do is either on white cardstock or on cardstock that I had painted, scrap of something, I put this pearl luster onto it and then die cut it. I also did the pearl luster onto quite a few of the backgrounds. I just love the look it gives. Oh, sorry. That was me getting my audiobook all ready. I'm listening to the Bible right now. So sadly, not the fun Jesus is a baby part. At the time I was doing this, I was listening to, I think, Numbers, maybe? The books with all of the laws for ancient Israel. So it's a little long. I like the more actiony bits and less the, don't sleep with your aunt bits. But it's been fun. So anyway, back to the card. I am heat embossing with the silver. See here, you'll see what I'm talking about. Where on the dark blue, the silver comes up and it looks great, but on the other cardstock, it doesn't. So here's what I did with every single of the sentiments. Some of them were on white cardstock, so we were talking about that just a minute ago. On the left, you'll see with the heat embossing, since I stuck it down, since I stuck that large piece of watercolor cardstock on top of the background, it didn't connect the picture. The stamp just didn't stamp very well, and that was my fault because I stamped it onto 2 different levels. So I thought maybe I could correct it by just connecting the stamp with my Uniball Signo silver pen. It didn't really work, but I decided to keep the card and keep going on it because I really liked it otherwise. So I just used this Peace on Earth, sentiment die and covered it up. I think it worked actually pretty well. So I'm going to add, I'm not sure, I did add the A and the R holes on this one because I did not lose them. And I really like how the sentiment turned out. I think I could have outlined it and it would have read a little bit better. But really simple and easy, and again, impactful card. Next, we have this one, which this one, if I'd done with black heat embossing and just didn't color it at all, would have been amazing. Of course, I did it in silver and it wasn't as great. So here I'm just auditioning to see if things are going to work. I decided to put it on the card, but I wanted some pink on the side. So I took out my Distress Oxide sponge sugar and just slid it onto the side. You saw me do that. I like how this looks a lot, and it's not perfect. It doesn't look like it's a perfect pink card under there, and it gives it some more movement, which this card might not have needed. There's a lot of movement on the pattern cardstock that I created. And if you want to see how all these cardstocks were created on my leftover pieces, go ahead and subscribe because on Friday of next week, I'll have that video up showing how I created all of these. They were just leftovers from that project. But I wanted to get this video out because it's Christmas related before Christmas if possible. So here we are. Here's my big mistake. I should have used my VersaFine Black Onyx ink and clear embossed over it. It would have really stood out. Next time I'll know, and if you do this kind of thing, you'll know. Because sometimes you just want to create a bunch of backgrounds and fun things, but you might be a little afraid of what to use them with. You can create crazy awesome things with them. I was a little nervous about using this color palette with Christmas, but it actually turned out super fun. It wasn't boring, I guess. They're not just really dark, boring cards. They're fun and electric. I thought on this one, if I just colored them with the lighter blue, it would make them stick out well enough that you could see them. But really, it didn't. It wasn't enough. So I go back through and I start trying to add detail, but I end up just coloring all of it except for their faces and the white on the donkey. So it looked better than nothing. But here you can see I did this similar card, but I used the black. I didn't heat emboss it. I just used the black ink pad, and it still turned out really good. I didn't have to color it. It looked really good. So that's just something to know, something to be aware of. Adding black and white is not cheating. It's just helpful. You need contrast. That was the issue with the silver embossing. So here I am just I put the cardstock down and I'm readjusting the stamp so that it looks good. Here we're going to stamp it down and it's going to really come together. I make a mistake though and get some of the black on my finger and then smudge it all over that beautiful white cardstock. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I had this so perfect. So what I do, well, I haven't got the smudge, but I'll show you what I do. I did decide, instead of having the white sentiment, which really wouldn't work on the white background, to do the pearl luster onto some scrap of paper and cut the sentiment out of the scrap of paper. I like adding the pearl on there because it really makes it more cohesive. Sometimes when you're looking at these cardstocks, they're not super cohesive, but adding that pearl luster gives it a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of shine, not too much, and then it makes it a cohesive looking piece. So I'm going to stick this down, and here is where I think I stick my finger into the stamping and I have messed everything up. I was just like, are you kidding me? So on the background paper, I took the metallic marker, which matched the ink that I used on that background paper, and just colored over the mistake I'd made. I did heat set the stamp then at that point because I didn't want to ruin it anymore or get my fingers in it again. And then I just am outlining that Joy to the World sentiment die cut and adding some little squiggles off of it. And in specific places where I may have gotten some ink on there, there is a big squiggle over that. But since there's squiggles everywhere, it doesn't look too much like I'm just coloring over the issue. And I think it turned out really cute. So, I believe that is the last card, but head over to my page or stick here. I'll put the next video on. And thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Bye, guys.